Hello and welcome back to Wake Up Our Faith, the show where passion, purpose, and dreaming big challenge common sense. We like to think of it as a conversation to shed light on the upside of upside down living. Matt Ham, Kevin Adams with you again, man. It's so good to be back.
Oh, yeah.
Gosh, I've missed you, man. I've missed you.
That's saying a lot.
It is. But I mean, you've been away. We've had hurricanes.
Yeah.
And yet here we come up, rising from the ashes, baby.
Yeah.
Nothing but goodness. So glad you guys have joined us today. Our show's live streaming right here from the Standard Glass Studios, Wilmington's Big Talker 106.7 in Howe Creek Landing. We're going to be joining you from 1 to 3 p.m. on YouTube, Facebook Live, and Twitter. This show is made possible by our corporate partners. We want to give them a shout out. These are local businesses here in the Wilmington area. We encourage you guys to go and support them post-storm. That's how this thing's going to work. Get back out into the community and buy and support local. We want to thank Freeman Landscape. No, these guys are busy after the storm.
Yeah,
they are southeastern North Carolina's largest land and irrigation firm, both commercial and residential. Family owned and operated as well. Just great people. Give them a call, 910-796-1166. We also want to thank Chris Riley and the team at Fountain Financial, our friends over there. They are all about helping clients and their families and keeping promises for more than 20 years. I'm so glad that they weathered the storm well, and I know that they are pouring into their clients and families here in the aftermath. So, Kev, man, the elephant that's no longer in the room that came through the room was Hurricane Florence. Landfall right here in Wilmington, North Carolina, Wrightsville Beach, I should say. So here we are.
Yeah, and we can take a minute to reflect on that. I think something that's interesting is, and a good thing maybe from it. There's many good things from it. But one is the potential of changing the rating scale to reflect things like water, the speed it travels,
absolutely,
and maybe adding some more digits. So, like if it's a 4 plus a 2 plus a 3, or a 4-2-3, or a 4-2-1, or 2, so one represents wind speed, but the other represents water capacity, speed, travel speed, that kind of thing.
That's actually a really cool thought. I hadn't even considered that, because I think a lot of folks, when they saw the storm go from a 4 wind speed down to a 1, I'd be okay. And dude, it just washed us out.
Right.
And so that's a fantastic thought. Those of you tuning in from the National Weather Service, we need to have the Adams scale in addition to the Saffir-Simpson. There should be an emotional stress scale too.
Yeah. That was tough. I think it's a disservice for us to talk too much and too long about it, because there's a lot of people are very, very hurt by this. Right. But I think it's difficult for anybody living in the area. Emotionally, there's just no way around it, unless you're just a true nut. I'm sure there's some of those around too.
I have a little bit of that in me. My wife would attest. But
you're the good kind, right?
Well, that's right.
Like a cashew.
The good nut. Pistachio.
Yeah, pistachio. Not a rotten pecan.
Well, man, it's we don't want to dwell on it for those that are tuning in, but it is something that's affected other areas significantly. Yeah. And as we were preparing for the show today, Kev, I think that the heart of this for us was saying that we have an opportunity right now to dwell on the past, to even be buried by our current moment, circumstances, and they're heavy for many people.
Sure.
Or we can use this as an opportunity to look forward.
Right.
And I think our company, our organization, UPrint, we're all about investing in people.
That's right.
And so I think that you and I both have felt commonality in this call to be a voice for people moving forward, to help provide direction and encouragement and hope, even in the midst of what we've just been through. So that's really where we want to come from today.
Yeah. Well, there's a lot of people doing a lot of physical things and helping. There's a lot of energy companies, tree companies, ministries, pastors, all doing things to help people in their immediate needs. And, as people, we jump in and do what we can. But I think as a company, our job is to help remind people that you have a future, and it's a good future, and God hasn't forgotten you. no matter what you've been through, there's some amazing things to begin to step into.
Right.
And God says, count it all joy. So, what does that look like? One other thing I wanted to touch on, and you touched on it a few minutes ago, but I really felt this very strongly, and we were in, my family and I felt led to leave. We went to Jacksonville, Florida. That's where I'm from. My mom and dad and brother and sister are there. So I wouldn't, some people call it an evacuation or a hurricane.
Right.
I wouldn't call it that. Other than seeing my family, it wasn't. But we were around. Holly and I went down to an area of Jacksonville that was flooded last year from Irma.
Okay.
And talked to some of the business people down there. And one of the biggest things, and God had really put this on my heart before we ever went down there. In fact, I texted you, and we went after. But that is one of the things we want to do is not pull back.
Yes.
We want to get out there and spend money, go to Starbucks, order the big drink, go to Port City Java, go to TJ Maxx, get out there, go eat a good dinner, support the economy, because business owners, they need that. That we don't need to retract. So even if you're supporting what we're doing from a distance, or anything locally from a distance, jump in.
Yeah.
We have nonprofit, but we are simply saying that we need to refuel our economy. We don't need to retract, and we're taking that step ourselves and getting out there and doing things maybe a little more than we normally would.
Yeah.
Because it's what's needed. I just felt that very strongly. Anyway, long story, but the folks in Jacksonville that I talked to, I said, "What's the biggest thing that you struggled with when you went through this last year?" And I mean, their whole shops were flooded. And they said, people just come back.
Yeah.
Customers come back, support the economy. And it was a total confirmation. So I really wanted to say that.
Absolutely.
And join you in agreement with that for our economy.
I think one thing we need to say to the people that have been affected, and as you're saying, and just in a different phrase, is that let's be Rocky Balboa. We talk about this as we help navigate people through circumstances in life.
Yes.
And we say one of the things about faith is to get back up after you've been knocked down.
That's right.
You know what I mean? That is a consistent messaging of perseverance, of running the race, you know what I mean, of counting it joy. Right. And in this season, we can't say it enough, be Rocky. Let's get back up as a community, and let's dive right back in. Because I was talking to some business owners the other day, and just how, I mean, you shut down a store for a week in the middle of this season. It's a significant portion of revenue. Yeah. So not to mention the stress of my house is damaged. We're waiting in gas lines. We don't have power. My income is gone. Right. For a period of time.
And any jobs, my wife and daughter both were out of work for a couple of weeks. So even people that are going to these places were out of work. Even a part-time income. So it all works together, and I think that's a sort of a good way for us. We don't have a truck to go cut down trees,
right?
But I think that's something that we can stand on as a business who functions as a ministry. We're kind of a blend, having a nonprofit and a normal business model, a for-profit as well. We're doing it. We're jumping out. We're buying things. We're getting stuff, and we're asking everybody to jump in and go do that. Take your spouse to dinner. Yeah. Just get out there and really let's take this thing back.
Well, one of the things that you feel post-storm is a guilt for not being able to jump in. It's like, well, I didn't cut down trees, or I don't have an Instagram post where I tore out some walls, so I'm not doing anything. Right. What we're saying is don't give into that guilt of making it look like somebody else. Like, just get engaged back in the community. Yeah. Help right where your feet are planted.
Yeah. There's no guilt. You do what God leads you to do. Don't let the right hand know what the left hand's doing, and do it quietly, but do what you're led to do and where your gift sets are. This is where ours are, and we stand behind our local businesses,
Yeah.
especially our sponsors, but everybody.
Yeah. Well, it's huge. And I think, Kevin, what you're going to see here is a city and a community come together in a powerful way. And I even said this, it's almost like a cleansing or a renewal or
Yeah.
a season of restoration, not only
right.
physically for the city, but spiritually as well.
Yeah.
And here we are as an organization who has a mission to eradicate spiritual poverty.
Yes.
And now there is fertile soil for people who've maybe slowed down and said, this is something I probably should pay attention to.
Hey, I like that word, Sloan.
Slown down. Slowed.
Just teasing you, man.
Slowing.
It works for me.
Oh, man, we appreciate you guys joining us. Matt Ham and Kevin Adams. This is Wake Up Our Faith. We're here with you every Wednesday, 1 to 3 p.m., live streaming, rebroadcast on Wilmington's Big Talker every Sunday, 12 to 2. We're going to take a short break, but we'll be back for more right after this. Hello, and welcome back to Wake Up Our Faith. This is the show where passion, purpose, and dreaming big challenge common sense. We like to think of it as a conversation to shed light on the upside of upside down living. Matt Ham, Kevin Adams with you every single week. We're the co-founders of UPrint, a faith and personal development organization right here in Wilmington, North Carolina. So glad to be back on the air after a few weeks hiatus. But here we are back. I appreciate you guys tuning in. I want to encourage you guys to share this out in your communities. This is a conversation about waking up faith in our everyday lives between Sundays and living from that place of fullness that God has for us in a fresh way. So appreciate you guys tuning in. I want to thank our corporate partners for making this show possible. One of those is the Honeycutt Group. I'm sure that Chad and the folks are very busy right now being in the insurance business. They can help if you have any insurance needs. 910-338-1773. Honeycutt Group has more than 10 years experience, family-owned business. There'll be a lot of insurance questions coming up, so make sure you reach out to the Honeycutt Group. Also, too, Physical Therapy Services of Wilmington. I was able to connect with Russ Simmerman there during the storm. He and his family fared well. A little bit of damage to the building, but they were out there repairing it, and they were up serving patients just a few days later. They're family-owned and operated since 1983, more than 100 years experience in the office. Go see them, Physical Therapy Services of Wilmington, folks. 910-763-8286. So, Kev, we jumped in a little bit to talk about Hurricane Florence, but from a different perspective. It's happened. Now let's move in a certain direction.
Yeah.
And so today we want to talk about looking forward. We want to talk about hope. We want to talk about encouragement, what God is doing, not what he's not doing.
Right.
So let's step into that conversation for our listeners who might be looking for a little bit of juice today.
Yeah. Well, one of the things we try to draw from is our Portable Faith community. The content we send out, we feel like it's something that God leads, and it's different at different times, and I think it really speaks to where people are.
Absolutely.
Not everybody, but a lot of people. So today, I think one of the, I'm not even sure how to put a context on this, but we wanted to talk about the idea of going through a struggle rather than asking for it to be removed. And then also, a couple of extraordinary gifts that God gives us. It's kind of a positive and a negative, it would seem, but it works together to bring about something great. So we'll get into that, and then we want to maybe wrap up today with talking about the fruits of the Spirit and how it all ties together. So that's under the title of Managing Emotion.
Yeah. So the storm itself brought a ton of emotion.
Absolutely.
And I think even in the aftermath, we're all navigating that emotion. And so as we talk about this, we're always wanting to come to you with a fresh perspective. And something that not many people are talking about is, how do you manage the emotion of tragedy, the emotion of difficulties, adversity?
Yeah.
And the first, kind of messaging here, which you mentioned as a part of the Portable Faith community. This is encouragement, folks, that we send out every single weekday morning. You can check out more at wakeupmyfaith.com. But Kevin, share that thought, because it's a powerful thought on how we begin to step through our struggles instead of removing them.
Yeah. Well, I think the tendency is to seek relief rather than peace. Ooh. And I know, you and I together, we had different answers for our family, but it came from the same place. We sat in a coffee shop and discussed before the storm what we both felt led to do, and Matt stayed and we left, and both with the right answer. But that required us to manage the emotions, and but it started with we're not asking God to remove it. Of course, we're saying, Lord, keep the damage down, but knowing that you're facing something difficult, trusting that God's going to bring deliverance through it. So anyway, I'll just read this is just the beginning of this, but don't ask God to remove the struggle, but rather to deliver you through it. So, we talk about the storm as metaphorically, but there's lots of struggles. So if you put the storm aside for a second and just talk about emotional turmoil and things we go through that weigh heavy on us, and dilemma, things that we don't quite know the answer. So the point is don't ask God to remove the struggle, but rather to deliver you through it. Deliverance. Here's the reason: deliverance takes time for you to grow while in the struggle, whereas having it removed leaves you always vulnerable to it in the future.
Yeah.
So that's a huge thing. You want to take it away real quick, like, then you'll remain vulnerable.
Yeah, it's powerful. I mean, as you're saying this, the thing that hit me is the whole phrase hurricane relief. So often, right in the midst of the aftermath, people are looking for relief.
Right.
And it's understandable. We're not taking away the need for relief.
Yeah. Right.
But what we're saying that God offers is hurricane peace.
Yes.
And this is so much bigger.
Yes.
And this is profound. Like, this is powerful to get a hold of.
Yeah.
It's not just temporary relief from your struggles. It's growth and deliverance through them.
Yeah.
And that's what God wants for us.
Yeah, peace is huge, but it's something that requires us to be delivered through rather than to go around. If you think about a funnel, if you want to pour something big into something small, it has to go through the funnel. You can't go around it. It has to go through it. And I know we've both been through different things, and so like many people, and I wouldn't trade it. Wouldn't trade the struggle because God removes our vulnerability. So we have to have a vision. We have to kind of live by a vision. What's going to really matter down the road? What's going to matter in 1,000 years? But we have to live it out 1,000 seconds at a time. And how do we do that? We manage our emotions. Emotions are good. They're not bad. They can be negative. God doesn't want us to lean on that. But catching this and seeing the picture of it, we're aiming for peace. God will take us through. He'll deliver us. He delivered in the Bible. You don't see him removing stuff. You see him delivering through. And what it does is it removes it. There's preparation. It removes the vulnerabilities.
Yeah,
and it takes time.
Yeah, it's as I sit here and think about it. What I think that this storm has done, if anything, it's caused people to pause for long enough. Yeah. To maybe have some thoughts and think through some things that they were unwilling to previously. And so, one of the things that I would encourage our listeners, our viewers to ponder through now is, do you generally pray for relief from or deliverance through?
Yeah.
And that's a subtle difference.
Yeah.
But it speaks to spiritual maturity.
That's right. Yeah. One is immature or less mature. It's fine. But one shows wisdom, and future forward thinking.
Well, I think about Jesus, right? Even as he faced the cross, his initial prayer was, "Take this from me."
That's right.
It was to take it. Yeah. But then he said, "No, your will be done. Deliver me through it." That's powerful, man.
Well, it also says that Jesus learned obedience through suffering, so he didn't know everything. As a man, there's lots of learning going on there. To prepare him. So he had to be prepared. And he said, "I came not to do my own will, but the will of my Father." So when you start recognizing that Jesus is our model, it's through. Yeah. Not around, not remove, but through. And God says, "Count it all joy." How do you do that? That's how, when you start doing that, we can get into that in a little bit, but that is how you turn a tragedy into a trajectory.
Yes.
You can build an amazing thing in a future on something that's awful.
I keep getting this picture of Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. I don't know why. I just see them in the fire.
That's good.
Being delivered through it. You know what I mean? Just in the midst of it, just standing. Or Daniel in the lion's den. Like this stuff, this biblical stuff, like it's there as our inheritance for a reason.
That's right.
It's not just, oh, cool story. Let's throw awesome. No, this is actually how we're called to live.
Yeah.
In the midst of the lion's den, to stand firm, man. That's cool.
It is. So one thing in the last few seconds here, trying to wrap up that thought in this segment, it's the final note here is preparation is the earthly cost of every heavenly purpose. So it's not a new thought for us, but it's one worth repeating. Preparation is the earthly cost of heavenly purpose. So God brings purpose when you're delivered through by removing your vulnerabilities. But you have to be prepared.
If you have the faith to believe that God is preparing you for something great, that he's that good, that he loves you that much, he's preparing you for a great work.
That's right.
You'll trust him to deliver you through them.
Absolutely.
And that's a cool thing.
Yep.
So that's just an encouragement to the folks today who are walking through whatever it is they're walking through.
Yeah.
You know?
Hopefully, yeah.
God's got something good for you. So, guys, Matt Ham, Kevin Adams, we're going to take a short break. We'll be right back. You're watching Wake Up Our Faith. I want to encourage you to check out the Portable Faith community as well, wakeupmyfaith.com. You guys dive in. There's some awesome content there. Talk soon. Hello and welcome back to Wake Up Our Faith. This is the show where passion, purpose, and dreaming big challenge common sense. We like to think of it as a conversation to shed light on the upside of upside down living. Matt Ham, Kevin Adams with you every single week. Appreciate you guys joining. We're coming live from the Standard Glass Studios here in Howell Creek Landing as part of Wilmington's Big Talker 106.7 FM. Kevin and I are the co-founders of YouPrint, a faith and personal development organization to help you live the life of impact you were created for. The show is all about conversations to awaken that, and this show is made possible by our corporate partners. We want to take a moment to give them a special thanks post-Hurricane Florence, one of those being Southern Bank, the Bank of Better Business. They've been serving Eastern North Carolina since 1901, and I know that many of their members and those that do business with Southern Bank are severely affected by the flooding, and I am certain that those folks are stepping up to the call. I know the office here in Mayfair is fantastic. Paul McCumbee, Lenny Smith, and Leon Pruzon. They offer personalized financial service, and you can give them a call, 910-256-3657. And also, Dr. Greg Veman of Seacoast Skin Surgery and Everlasting Strength, his ministry there. I saw Dr. Veman's truck outside. He's got his cool, big blue truck, where he's coming around. Sure that they fared well. If you need to reach out to them, support them, give them a call, 910-256-2100. So, Kev, today we're talking a little bit about moving forward and providing some direction for folks post.
Kind of like Michael Jordan is on Matt's shirt. If you can't see it, it's a foul line dunk. It looks like.
I love
that's
this
forward motion.
That's it, man. Well, I wore this today, Wilmington native, kind of in the spirit of all of this, man.
Yeah.
Rising above, baby.
That's right.
Air Jordan, Air Wilmington. Here we come.
Do you know what he's worth?
Pushing a B, man.
Yeah, it's almost 2.
Is it 2?
1.7. Yeah. Well, Holly and I looked it up. Well, she looked it up when we were driving.
Okay.
Just for the heck of it.
Yeah.
Because I think we were talking about the hurricane, and she said he had given a couple $1 million or something. We're like, come on, Michael, pony up. Oh, you're a billionaire, buddy. So she looked it up. I was like you. I thought it was getting close to that. But, yeah, man, it was 1.7. You think about the team.
Yeah.
You own a professional team, you're probably a billionaire.
Yeah, moving in that direction, certainly.
So, yeah, he's the wealthiest NBA player of all time.
Ever.
It's amazing.
Awesome. It was awesome to see. Here's this hometown, North Carolina, Wilmington, North Carolina kid.
Yeah.
And you said you were reading autobiography on his family or something?
Yeah, it's real interesting. It gives a way back to the 1800s history of his family and, how swamp dwellers. I mean, it's pretty crazy. His life is just this incredible diamond that came out of coal.
Yeah.
So, pretty cool.
That's wild. Well, it's hopeful for anyone, right?
Yeah.
These stories matter because they're empowering for us to remember that God has this thing for our lives.
Yeah, that's right. Well, he's definitely someone who believed and stepped into it. And I don't want to get us sidetracked, but anyway, I'm looking at it. It's one of those pictures that we've all seen. It's a good motivator, forward motion. So anyway.
I think it echoes where we are. This is the call for us in this time. We're talking today about post tragedy, navigating through, being delivered through adversity. And so as we step into this kind of as a city, as a community, as we step into it as an organization, what do we want to remind people of in this process?
Well, we were talking about deliverance through. We were talking about preparation. We were talking about being able to withstand and go through it in the name of peace, seeking peace, not relief.
Yeah.
Because it prepares us for what God has next, and that's a real thing. That's why one-hit wonders, or people who are famous, it takes a whole lot of time, and most people don't realize what's been invested. So whatever it is God wants for us, it takes sometimes a lifetime of preparation, like Abraham Lincoln, for example.
Sure.
So that said, the Rocky Balboa idea is that you just keep, our job isn't to necessarily knock everything down or fight the storm. It's to sleep in the boat, right? That's what Jesus was doing.
Yeah.
It's to stand back up, though, and endure. Keep getting back up no matter what. And we visited a museum in Jacksonville. It's funny, I went there, a little kid field trips. It used to be the Children's Museum. I think it's a museum of science or something.
Okay.
So we went in there, and they had a hurricane machine. You can stand in it for a couple bucks. I guess it's a way to make some money. But it's kind of funny. So they get you up just beyond a Category 1 hurricane. It's all blowing down, but it's a booth. So Holly and I go in there together, and it's really a bad like hat hair thing,
Right.
But it's really interesting because I guess it lasts a couple minutes, but the wind speed increases all the way up to roughly 80 miles an hour. I think Category 1 is like 74 miles. So, but it was funny because we never, it was kind of blowing us around, but we never, we stood. We stood in that. So it's more of a picture.
Yeah.
Where, imagine that just blowing straight down on you, or trying to thwart you, trying to throw you. But you stand. And we walked out of the booth, fixed our hair, and moved on. It's not that simple, but in a way it is.
Yeah. Well, the thing about our faith is that it provides this unshakable foundation.
Yeah.
That is the promise of the gospel.
That's right.
He is unshakable.
Yeah.
And so in a world that is shaken by so many things, we have something supernaturally to stand on.
That's right.
That is unshakable. And
Right.
and when you see the call of Christians in this kind of season, it's those who are unwavering in their willingness to follow God in the
Yeah.
midst of the adversity.
That's right.
Trusting with all things. It's not just one hand raised on Sunday. It's not just this kind of, casual thing.
Right.
It's like, Dan, this is it. This is life abundantly.
Yeah.
Stand on it. Be unshakable.
That's right. Yeah. Well, I think to get into the next text, content that we send out,
Yeah.
we mentioned a couple of them that we were using today to kind of give us some things to talk about. The second one is, so the first one is, preparation, deliverance through, seek peace. And again, this is under the context of managing your emotions. It's kind of like saying, I want to be desperate, but I want to be desperate in the right direction. I want to be desperate for God. I want to seek Him, His face, not just the things in His hands. But anyway, two most extraordinary gifts God has given you. I forgot to put the word "the" in front of it on my notes. The two most extraordinary gifts God has given you are, one, the ability to dream, and two, the inability to fulfill that dream without Him. And that's a really powerful thought, because it means you matter and God is everything. He created you, and He gave you this ability to dream and to co-labor, to carry it out, to pioneer, to think for yourself. But you can't do it without Him, not in any sustainable way. So ultimately, that's sort of the foundation for the remaining part of our show.
To me, man, that gives me this hope. As you talk about navigating post-hurricane, moving forward, perspective, managing your emotions, which is what we're talking about. Perseverance, right, is and peace. Are the first part of that.
Yeah.
And the second part of that is, okay, yeah, well, why does that even matter? Well, it's because God's placed a dream inside your heart.
Yes.
He's got something for you to fulfill.
That's right.
You know what I mean? He's got this thing, this purpose, it's that God-shaped hole, whatever you want to call it. It's that thing that cannot be satisfied apart from Him.
Yeah.
And so you've got to hope in that and begin to believe in that and use these moments as an opportunity to be prepared and then to step in to say, all right, if you've been good enough to give me a dream, you're good enough to come alongside me to help me fulfill it.
That's right. And you work together. And the funny thing is that because God created things this way, this is how it works. We have to become vulnerable. We have to become so peaceful in the storm that we allow the storm to do its thing. that we begin to get to a place where we embrace the good future just ahead of it. God always prunes, he always cleans, and something amazing always comes from it. Beauty for ashes. We can talk about it when we come back.
It's just so good, and I just have so much encouragement right now for all of us just walking through this, is that God wants to use this for his good purposes.
Absolutely. He will.
And he will. And the question is will we let him?
Right.
Will we let him? So
That's right.
You guys are watching and listening to Wake Up Our Faith. Matt Ham, Kevin Adams. We'll be back after a short break. Hello and welcome back to Wake Up Our Faith. This is the show where passion, purpose, the dreaming big challenge common sense. We like to think of it as a conversation to shed light on the upside of upside down living. My name is Matt Ham. With me every week is Kevin Adams. We are here in the Standard Glass Studios at Wilmington's Big Talker 106.7 FM. Appreciate you joining us on YouTube, Facebook Live, and Twitter. I want to thank our corporate partners, and as we've said during the show, make sure you support these folks. These are local folks, family-owned, many of them. It's just, they're great people. We want to thank Chris Hutchins, his team at Guaranteed Rate Mortgage. In this entire environment surrounding the storm, it does affect your mortgage. There's a disaster area, so make sure if you need some advice there, you reach out to Chris and his team because you can navigate that in a special way. Call Chris if you're looking to refinance or whatever, 344-344-0304. And also Century 21 Swalyer and Associates. I was able to talk with Jeff the other day, and as a real estate organization there, they've got a lot of people kind of boots on the ground helping out. It's a big time, a lot of properties damaged and so forth, but they've got a great movement going there. Super proud of Century 21 Swalyer. More than 30 years in the real estate business here in southeastern North Carolina. If you have any real estate needs, give them a call, 910-256-0021. So Kev, a really cool show today. I hadn't stopped smiling. My face is hurting from smiling. It's just so good to be back with you. So good to be back streaming to all our folks that are watching. It's awesome. And before we went to break, you were talking about this idea of the two most extraordinary things God has given you is the ability to dream and the inability to fulfill it without Him. Right. And it was just a cool thing for me because what I got to thinking about during the break is I thought about Tiger Woods. And again, this isn't about what Tiger's belief systems are, but what I'm trying to make an illustration here of is that, this past weekend, Tiger Woods came back after not having won in 5 years on the PGA Tour to win his 80th PGA Tour event. Sure. And what it did for me is when I saw how people responded after all the adversity that he's gone through, how people came like flooding down the fairway, just like cheering this thing on. It spoke to me about our desire as human beings to believe in that thing, that there is this dream in our hearts. Sure. And that when we fulfill it, when we live out that expression, it empowers people, it empowers people. And so, we look at these icons like a Tiger Woods or a Michael Jordan or whoever, but what we want to say to folks is that's you.
Yeah, you're God's idea, just like they are. And, they're just people, but they're people. And you're just a person, but you're a person.
Right.
It's the greatest thing ever. And, but God's even greater because He made us.
Yeah.
So two most extraordinary gifts. God has given us the ability to dream and the inability to fulfill it without Him. God is into glory. He wants credit, but He wants us to have victory, and He wants us to enjoy our lives. And I don't like when people argue against that. God's not mean. He's not ugly, and He didn't make crap. He made good stuff. He made geniuses. He gave us joy. And that's one of the reasons I wanted to focus on a little bit here in our last segment, the fruits of the Spirit. I've heard growing up, in a variety of different sort of Christian-y environments, this idea that, I'll be corny about it, but you can't lean on your emotions, Well, God says don't lean on your understanding. He doesn't say don't apply emotion. And if you go through Scripture and you read Proverbs and different sort of wise books, what you see is God doesn't want us to lean on or be led by negative emotions, anger and frustration, jealousy, things that drive us to focus on self. But He does want us to apply emotion. Emotions are powerful, and we need to employ them in our relationship with God. We need to have affection for Him, not just walk around saying, I love Him. So
that's huge. I want everybody to just digest on that a little bit. That is very, very, very powerful.
Well, God gave us our imagination. He gave us the ability to see things, to take them into our heart, and to feel them. And that's what He talks about, when He says, take it into your inmost parts. He's talking about take it into your heart, because what comes back out of your heart is reality. People talk about reality and they claim it as something, they sort of define it as something they can see. But reality is what comes out of your heart, and that's why Jesus said, the whole thing about if you even stare at a woman, lust in your heart, it's the same thing. Or murder, hate. It's because what comes out of your heart brings your reality. Absolutely. So that said, fruits of the Spirit, love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, goodness, faithfulness, gentleness, self-control. You can't do any of them without leaning on and applying healthy emotion. We need to feel it.
Yeah. This is powerful. I want folks to really grab hold of this. We're talking about managing emotions after adversity or after tragedy. And what you're saying is that so often we go, well, emotions are bad. You know what I mean? And we toss it out.
Right.
But what we're trying to make a point of here, and what we're trying to say is that negative emotions are bad.
Worry,
so when
fear,
exactly
anger.
Yeah. Instead, learn to embrace the emotions of the fruit of the Spirit.
Yes.
And so let's go through these. Let's talk about these and expound upon them and let people feel them.
Well, even if you, and I don't know how much time we have, but even if you look at just a few, I mean, love itself, you have to have emotion with that. Emotion is the fuel. Joy, wow, you can't separate emotion from joy. Joy, by definition, is emotional. It's a from a quantum physics point of view, it is molecules vibrating at such a great speed. It's the highest vibration, however you want to look at it. But spiritually speaking, joy must be fueled and filled with emotion. If I feel joy, I feel it.
Yes.
It's not something I think about. It's like jumping in the swimming pool. You don't think about which way you're going to go. You plan getting there. You got your lawn chair, your towel, and all that. That's your planning. That's your logic. You jump in and you just go. It's exciting. When we get in the ocean, or when you get on the ocean, in your case, in your boat, you feel your way through it.
Absolutely.
So love, joy, peace, those three, kindness, goodness, all of those require positive emotion. So we can't throw that out, in the idea that God gives us a dream and the inability to fulfill it. Emotion must be a part of that.
Well, we got a couple minutes left in the first hour here. I want to talk about the last one that they list, self-control.
Self-control.
This is huge. This is the one that so many people get tripped up on, because they don't think that they have the ability to control their emotions. They don't think they have the ability to control their choices, and they do.
Right.
This is so powerful. God did not give us a spirit of fear, but of power, love, and, same word, self-control.
Sure. Yeah. Well, another way to look at this is, what are you focusing on? So if you want to have self-control, and it is self-control, it's something God gives you, but you do have to step into it. So going back up to what we were talking about earlier, are you focused on your God-given dream or distracted by how it will be accomplished? So self-control applied to that is saying, you know what? I'm not going to be distracted by how, because God is the how. And he proves that if you understand Scripture over and over again. So what we've got to focus on is why. Why? Why am I doing this? What's my future look like? So it's self-control can be applied with powerful emotion and redirecting your focus on what God says. Think on these things, count it all joy, be thankful for all things, in all things. Are you focused on your dream or distracted by the how? That's one example. Another way to look at this is, are you focused on the beautiful outcome or distracted by who gets the credit? Again, another thing you can apply self-control. These are just examples. You wanted to point out self-control, but you can apply it to any of them.
Well, this is just a powerful thing, because we have to recognize as a people that we have the choice. We have the power of choice. The most powerful thing that we probably have, other than faith, right?
Yeah, our attitude and our choices.
We choose it. It's so powerful. Yeah. Jesus had it. We have it. We have to own it. We have to own the power to choose the future that God has for us.
Yeah, that's right.
And either we're doing that, or we're just being led around and pushed around, as we say, by what we see.
Yeah, that's right. It's a big thing, and I know we're wrapping up here, so just remember, manage your emotions, but don't let go of them. They are a part of your dream and God's way of helping you fulfill it.
Yeah. We want to encourage you guys to continue to step forward into the life that God has for you, the life of impact that He created you for. We walk with people every weekday through this at wakeupmyfaith.com. We've got the show every Wednesday as a way to come along conversations, one-to-one mentoring. We're here for you guys. We love you. We want to see you live out of that fullness. We appreciate you joining us. We're going to take a short break and be back for hour number 2 of Wake Up Our Faith. Hello and welcome back to second hour of Wake Up Our Faith. This is the show where passion, purpose, and dreaming big challenge common sense. We like to think of it as a conversation to shed light on the upside of upside down living. Our friend, Macy Cole, is back in the house. You know Kevin Adams. We brothers here joined you for the first hour. Macy's back in. Macy, you and your fantastic husband, Troy.
Yes.
Did he carry you on his back to Boone? I have to ask you that question.
Yes, he did. He did.
I could see Troy just like toting people out of the city.
And our two cats and our dog. We were all on his back.
Cats.
I
Actually.
I didn't see much, but I think maybe it was on my wife's phone, but I did see a video where maybe he was working out in the driveway or using the dog or something.
Yes. Yes.
And that was pretty funny.
That was really funny.
How dare we give Troy a hard time? He's not even here to defend himself.
He's out there.
He is. He's watching. We know he is.
He
So,
is.
no, we love you
Oh,
guys.
good fun.
Macy and Troy are the owners of Access Yoga Plus Studio here in Wilmington. Macy's been joining us for a couple months now.
Yeah.
Just to add this awesome perspective to the show, just bring her truth and insight and so forth. And it's just been so good. We just love you guys being here. I want to encourage you guys to share this out. Jump in the conversation. Comment below. Share this out with your community and dive right in because there's some cool stuff going on here. We want you guys to be a part of it. But our heart collectively is spiritual restoration, right? We want to bring a spiritual foundation underneath your life between Sundays to help you understand that God is so much better than you can imagine. And that's what we're here for. So we're just here for some encouragement. So, gang, what are we jumping into here?
Well, I know the last time we talked, we were talking about a bunch of yoga stuff, and we're going to get back to that. Interesting enough, the homework that was placed on my heart to give everybody was to go home and kind of figure out what is your foundation? What does your life rest upon? Who does your life rest upon? And how can you reconnect to nature, this beautiful thing that God has created? And I didn't know then the ways that we would be connecting to nature. Here we sit today. I'm going to put the yoga talk on hold, and I want to talk today about some things that I personally learned from the storm, and I want to hear maybe from you guys if there are things that you personally learned, and then from you guys as well out there listening and watching. We have a live cam if you want to add anything as well.
I learned that living inside without power with small children for any length of time is a form of a prison sentence. They would straighten up criminals in a heartbeat if they put them indoors with. Sorry, I'm joking. I'm trying to make light of the situation. But
Well, you had the can I say?
You can say.
You had some people in your house.
We did.
That were from the BBC, I guess.
Yes. So we had the craziest situation. We had a documentary crew from the BBC.
What?
Yeah. Did you know this? Did you hear this?
No.
Yeah. So anyway, forgive my wife.
The bloody BBC.
Yes. No. And we had a Brit. I had the British dude, James Lavelle, awesome guy. He and Troy would absolutely they would climb mountains and do all kinds of just these dudes, right? But anyway, he lived in the house for 48 hours filming this documentary for the BBC that my family will be a part of that'll be airing next year. And it was nuts because the biggest thing, Kevin, he completely crushed any hope I have of a British accent. He told me, he was like, "You need to work on that, mate," or whatever. I was like, oh, I'm done. He's like, "But your son's is pretty good."
Legacy.
Yeah.
Wow.
So, anywho.
Well, that's interesting that God opened that door up. We'll see what he does with it. But anyway, I just thought I'd mention it.
No. So, Macy, we're just jabbering over here. What about yourself? I mean, you guys kind of felt the call to evacuate. You closed your business.
Yep.
And you headed up to Boone, where
Yep.
you guys are from. So, what did it look like for y'all?
Well, interesting enough, the night before we left, we had our Bible study. We have Bible study every Monday night at the studio, and Holly, Kevin's wife, usually comes. And it was a group of us all talking about what we were going to do. And all of us were set on staying. and we felt the call to stay and the need to stay. And shortly after getting home and watching some more stuff about the storm, Troy looked at me and he was like, maybe we should go. And just to make it clear, Troy, I had never thought he would say that. The idea of closing the business for Troy was like, I didn't ever think he would be willing to do that, even in the middle of a storm.
Sure.
But when he said that, it became clear that we should probably go. So we left early that next day. And then come to find out, everyone but one ended up actually evacuating from the Bible study. So we were all like, God's telling us to stay. We're staying. And then all of us were like, all right, bye. I think God's actually saying leave. And did you leave, Kevin?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Felt that pretty early. It was the right thing to do. And, something interesting about that is sometimes we have this desire to fight and stand up and be a warrior.
Yeah.
And I think it's like the little kid in us that God's so, it's endearing to him.
Yeah.
But I think sometimes he says, that's great. And, I love you. Keep going. But I want you to actually do something a little different. And it has to settle in, because even when I was talking to Matt, I think it was it Monday? And the Monday before, and he's like, man, I just want to get out there. I want to see this thing,
Yeah.
And we felt, and I felt as a leader in my home, I just felt like we needed to go. It wasn't fearful. It was absolutely peaceful. We talked about that.
Yep.
But anyway, I think sometimes it's still good to feel like, yes, I'm taking my stand. That there's nothing bad there, but sometimes God gently says, okay, I'm so glad you're in.
Yep.
Now let's do this.
Yes.
So anyway, but we did leave.
I just want to add, kind of in our perspective, a couple days before, after we had met, I was wrestling with this consternation of, should I stay or should I go, right? It was kind of the theme song. And I was praying in the shower. Mm-hmm. And I firmly felt God say, remain. I felt it in my spirit, just deep down. Mm-hmm. And I told Liz, and Liz was struggling with it a little bit, and she was having a hard time. And I said, listen, I've got the kids. Go spend 20 or 30 minutes, up in the room of the garage, be praying about it or whatnot. And then I went up there and we prayed together. And it was just powerful, because for me, it was this uniting of our family, even in the midst of this crazy thing. And God showed up in powerful ways, whether you stay or go. It's not, like you said, both decisions are right.
Right.
It's not about that.
Yeah.
It's just about your faithfulness in the process. Mm-hmm. And then God shows up, and it's so cool to see that.
What I love about it is, first, the peace that Kevin talked about, because I had that too. It was the most interesting thing. But usually when hurricanes hit, especially back in college, everyone would be like, hurricane party. And I was like the one hunkered down in my apartment, like crying, hoping that we didn't get swept off the face of the earth. But this one was so different. At first I was like, no, I feel good. And I thought that peace was saying stay. And then I realized, after talking to my husband, no, it just meant that no matter what happens, and in my heart of hearts, I was fully prepared to come back to nothing. I really thought that could be potentially what was going to happen. Mm-hmm. And even though we have a lot of great things here, I was okay with that. I really, for the first time, was thinking about, okay, what happens if we lose our studio and we lose our home and we come back and everything's just leveled? And I was really, actually, truly okay with it. And what I also love is that Matt stayed with his wife and his 4 children. And I thought that was so courageous and so brave for 2 reasons. A, because he discerned God's will, and the storm was big. And B, because a lot of people probably had their own opinions about keeping children here and all of that kind of stuff. And Matt said, this is what the Lord is asking of me, and this is what I'm going to do. And that peace that Kevin spoke about and the courage that Matt and his family showed are 2 things that really inspired me while I was away. So thank you, guys.
It was for me, man. It was like this is like a family reunion. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's like getting the crew back together. And it was so difficult in a way, because here we are all separated and we're all staying in touch, Mm-hmm. I mean, we were talking to you, and one of the things that we said is, had we not stayed, our home would have flooded.
Wow.
I know that, because I had to actively clean off the debris from the storm drain. And then that's one of the things you said to me first day. You were like, man, praise God for that.
Yeah, you made the right decision.
Yeah.
And because you made it from here. And for radio audience, I've got my hand on just below my sternum. That's your spirit man lives there.
Yeah.
And you got to make decisions there, from there. According to Romans 8, be led by the Spirit. Anyway, you did that.
It's just a powerful thing, and I think we can jump into that. After the break here, is talking about making decisions, learning to discern God's voice, discern the Spirit, and stepping into that, because there's no other way to live, right? That's our navigational device, that's our compass, and that's what we walk alongside and teach people how to do. So you are listening to and watching Wake Up Our Faith. We'll take a short break and be back for more right after this. Hello and welcome back to Wake Up Our Faith. This is the show where passion, purpose, and dreaming big challenge common sense. We like to think of it as a conversation to shed light on the upside of upside down living. Kevin Adams, Matt Ham, and Macy Cole here for the second hour of the show, live from the Standard Glass Studios. This is streaming on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter. Of course, we're rebroadcast every single weekend right here on Wilmington's Big Talker, 106.7 FM from 12 p.m. to 2 p.m. And we got to tell you about our podcast, too. The show is podcasted to iTunes, Wake Up Our Faith. We have hours and hours of awesome conversation, perspective, some funny things in there, just some cool stuff. So, of course, we're all post-Hurricane Florence, and we're just kind of sharing some thoughts, kind of what we've learned, Macy, kind of let's keep that conversation going.
Absolutely. So my husband and I, we went to Boone. On our way there, we got a call from some friends. It was so crazy who called us because right as we were deciding to leave, I felt called to reach out to them. And then between everything happening, forgot to. And they asked us what we were doing, and we said, we're going to Boone, come with us. So they packed up their stuff and met us in Boone. So it was two of our friends, my mom, our two cats, our dog, Troy and I. And I can't really explain the week. It was probably one of the best trips I've ever had, aside from Troy and I's honeymoon, which is saying a lot because I never thought a week would get better than that week. And it was a week full of community, family, friendship, fun, restoration, cleansing. There's not enough words to describe it. And all the while that we were there, fully aware of what was happening at the place that we had left, but feeling each one of us this calm and this peace within our hearts. And it wasn't an ignorant calm. It was an aware calm of no matter what happens, we're going to come together as a community and we're going to be okay. And God really, I think, is using this as an opportunity to speak to people on many different levels. And God definitely spoke to me throughout that whole week as well. It's powerful.
Yeah, I think what you're describing is surrender. It's I have always had this picture of laying everything down at the altar every morning, every week. So you wear the garments of this world loosely, and you continue to do that. Your business, your income, your livelihood, even your friendships, even your family, even your spouse, everything you lay down. And what I found is that God picks back up the things that you are meant to have, and no one can take them from you. So when you think about it, what you lay down is everything but your identity in Him. And because you know that's the only thing that no one can ever take away from you because He gave it to you. So if you come back to nothing, you still have you and Him, and He can do a mighty thing with that. So, we left, and I can talk about that too, but I think that going back to the idea of making those decisions from the right place, doesn't matter where you end up as long as you followed His voice. The right people stayed, the right people left, and it worked, so it's powerful.
Kev, what about you and Holly, man? I know we talked about it a little bit in the first hour, but I know you've been processing. I mean, I know you well enough to know now that there's been a lot going on. You guys came back. Talk a little bit about, from your perspective.
Well, we decided to leave. You're talking to a guy who will go and swim around in it. I'm not afraid of that kind of stuff. But I just felt very. I can't explain it. It was peaceful, but we talked about it already. But what's interesting is we got to go spend time with my folks down in Jacksonville, and that was good. In fact, your mom even reached out and said, "Hey, come to Boone," but we were already pointed that way. But anyway, just hugs to Linda. Anyway, I think the thing that we didn't realize is, and we live in an apartment, so. If you have a house, there's all kind of logistical reasons to stay. There's a lot of logic, but you have to go by your heart. But I think the thing that was very confirming to us, aside from all the wonderful peripheral items like seeing people, and when we came back, of course our power had been out. There's 111 units in our apartments, and two things had happened. There was outside damage to the building, but it was only in one place on 3 buildings. It was only on our unit, the outside damage. And you can see it if you ride by there. But and it was right behind our bedroom.
Wow. That's
where the only damage was on all 3 buildings, 111 units, from the wind. So that thing moved right across. It hit right there. The other damage was water damage. We are the only unit in the whole 3 buildings, 111 units, to have water damage.
Wow.
It came through the roof. It came through its crazy channeled way, ended up dumping in our apartment, and ruined half of the ceiling. And, of course, they're taking steps with mold and all that. But there's so many good reasons we needed to leave.
Yep.
But it would have been an oven and all that kind of stuff. But I think what I looked at that was Holly and I both were like, yeah, if that's not some kind of spiritual warfare, how does that happen?
Yeah.
2 types of damage. They have nothing to do with each other. Turns out the one was preventable because someone didn't unclog a drain.
Okay.
But the storm was the catalyst. So the storm reached out and damaged the outside of our unit only, and the inside through negligence of our unit only. You can't make that kind of stuff happen. So we just looked at it like, okay, that's a great confirmation. Thank you, Lord. And, but it's that idea, I think, of letting it go, letting it all go. We took the things that were most valuable to us.
Yes.
Our pictures and, some keepsakes. But other than that, we left everything. I shrink wrapped it. But anyway, I don't want to talk about me the whole time. But I think the important thing here is following God and learning to listen to his voice.
Yes.
Through adversity, going through it, being delivered through it, he will deliver you, and he'll make it good. So no matter what your answer is, it's not a one-size-fits-all. It's not a can. It's a casserole. It's a bunch of different things.
Yeah. It's unique to you, right?
Yeah.
You're unique to God, you know what I mean?
Right.
And his call is unique to you.
That's right.
And that's why, you cannot put a one-size-fits-all on faith.
That's right.
Faith is personal. It's individual. And, there's common elements in faith for all of us.
Yeah.
But the point is to wake up the individual nature of your faith. And that to me that's why it's so cool. You see everybody navigating a similar situation with a different perspective independently, but God is big enough to work in all of those situations. How powerful is that?
Yeah.
I was in a group text, and there was probably about 15 of us, and someone asked, what do you think the purpose of this storm is? And immediately, the first thing that came to my mind was the word cleansing. And then, subsequently, almost at the same exact time, 3 other people said what they thought, and every single thing said cleansing in it. And it was an interesting thing because the way that this storm worked, it dropped all the way down to a Category 1, even though it was a Category 4 coming straight for us. And even at a Category 1, the damage was so rich.
Yeah.
They created so much damage, and there was so much water and flushed so many things out. And a lot of people lost a lot of things, but this community is restoring and repairing and coming together in a way. I'm not surprised, but I'm so excited that this community is what I thought it was, and it's even better, and it's even more beautiful than it was before in a way.
Yeah. Well, it peels back the layers. A lot of the superficial junk gets
Amen.
Gets left behind, and you mentioned Holly's birthday. She came home yesterday, and she was in a tough way, and I won't get into it right now, but she really needed to be able to let go of that and step into something joyful. The point is that cleansing.
Yes.
It removes the superficial. It removes the artificial.
Yes.
It lets go. It helps us let go of things. The idea here is God wants us to be stirred, in our spirit, but not shaken. There's a little James Bond for you. We're not to be shaken, but we're stirred through this,
Yep.
So good stuff.
Yeah. I love the thought right now that I have is the old has passed away and all things are made new. So we step up and stand into that. You are listening to, watching Wake Up Our Faith. Matt Ham, Kevin Adams, Macy Cole. We're going to take a short break. We'll be back for more right after this. Hello and welcome back to Wake Up Our Faith. This is the show where passion, purpose, and dreaming big challenge common sense. We like to think of it as a conversation to shed light on the upside of upside down living. We are here every Wednesday live streaming on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter. Matt Ham, Kevin Adams join you in the first hour. In the second hour, we are joined by our good friend Macy Cole. Macy and her husband Troy own and operate Access Yoga Plus Studio here in Wilmington. And we've been off the air for a few weeks now due to Hurricane Florence. And Kevin and I in the first hour talked a little bit just about kind of moving forward and direction and managing our emotions in the midst of this process. And Macy's joined us in the second hour just about kind of what we've learned in this process. You know, I think every adversity, every tragedy provides a great learning opportunity. And we're either willing to learn, we're either willing to yield to God's wisdom humbly in the midst of these seasons, or we refuse it because of maybe some negative emotions or too much hurt, too much pain. So what we want to encourage you guys to do is maybe pause for a moment and yield to the humility and fear of the Lord to say, God, what are you teaching me in the midst of this? And it's a powerful thing if we're willing to do that. Macy, you had a thought during the break. I'm not interrupting, Kevin, if you have anything, but Macy, talk about what you mentioned about the trees. I thought that was a pretty cool thought.
Yeah.
Well, what's so neat, I brought up in the last half about how one word that came to my mind about this storm was cleansing. And immediately Kevin started talking about the artificial and what was the other word you used? Do you remember? Superficial, yes. The artificial and superficial aspects that kind of get washed away when we cleanse. And so I came into town and I was noticing the trees. And at first I was so sad that these beautiful live oaks and just incredible trees were knocked over. And then I started to see this common theme between the trees that didn't survive. And their beauty couldn't prevent them from receiving the truth of who they were. And so they were some of the most beautiful trees I'd ever seen split in half because their center was dead. It had been rotted out.
Good.
And it wasn't going to weather the storm. And then other trees were uprooted because they had shallow roots and they weren't connected to the other trees that had chosen to be rooted. And so then I started to look at some of the trees that stayed. And at first I was like, kind of thinking, why did a lot of the ugly ones stay?
Because we're solid.
That's right.
The least of these.
We are the beauty from the ashes.
That's it, baby.
And then I realized they are the most beautiful ones that had been overlooked by the superficial irrelevance of some of these other ones that weren't truly being what we thought they were. And so the ones that lasted were the ones that were not hollow in the center. They were not dead in the center. They weren't uprooted because their roots went deep and their roots were truth. And those roots connected to other roots that had merit and richness. And I think sometimes Wilmington could be that live oak that stands proud with the perfect white fence and the beautifully manicured lawn and all of these concepts that really doesn't matter when a storm rolls in. These are not the things that we think about. And for the first time, I came back to Wilmington and I felt very stirred, almost like you take the ocean and you just shake it up and there's dust molecules and particles everywhere, and then all of a sudden it starts to settle. And here I am kind of settled, and what I realized is this town was forced to get vulnerable and forced to be real with ourselves, because at the end of the day, when a storm comes in, it doesn't matter if you're beautiful, rich, homeless, kind, evil, whatever. It's going to come in and it's going to reveal things as it stirs this community up that weren't seen prior to it happening. And I think we have an opportunity to rebuild on truth and to make sure that no matter what kind of storm comes in, and Kevin talked about this earlier, that what is standing is the truth of our heart, because no storm can take that. And I think about what was so rich about my time away, and it was the memories and the connection and the community and the peace from our Heavenly Father that was restored in me, so that now that I'm back in Wilmington, I don't want to get back in my mundane, tunnel-visioned routine. I want to take a look around and consider every moment of every day that God is giving me as a gift. And I want to make sure that the roots that I have, the foundation that I'm standing on, is not only firm, but is connecting to other roots that are equally firm. And then I'm willing to let the roots support me when I'm weak, just as much as I desire to support the roots of others who, when they're weak, I can be strong. And it's about uprooting the parts of ourselves that don't need to be there so that the next time Hurricane Florence comes in, we can self-reflect, and whether it be a true hurricane or an emotional hurricane or just a season of life, we're ready to get the things out that need to be out and push forward to become the person that God has created us to be.
Nick, man, hit the preach button. Let's get this on every news channel. This is Wilmington and the world. They got to hear this. That's so good, Macy.
Yeah. Thank you.
Well, something that was very interesting is I sat in Jacksonville in my parents' home. They're so gracious. They put gas in our car and fed us and bought us food, and they're just so good. But there's a lot of TV watching that goes on in their house. That's just sort of the way they do it, and we love them. But you got to kind of get out of the room because the news is always on. Difference between us, but I think I paid attention more because that's this is my home.
Yep.
And of course, that's where I'm from. That's my
right.
home too. And they know what it's like. But really, really interesting was seeing Wilmington on the national news. When I've had so many people, including family from Tennessee, where's Wilmington? Only thing people know, if you're not in North Carolina or in the Carolinas general area, or you travel 95 much, is I think that's where Michael Jordan's from. Other than that, what is that? What is it? So it one of the real blessings is to see it be put on the map. Yeah, we don't want it to grow too fast, but at the same time, God's doing something here, and I think that falls right in line with it. Knowing, that He's brought people here, He's kept people here, good roots, and right back to what you're saying, God's revealing, and even in Romans 8, it talks about the earth groaning, and I tend to think that some of this cleansing is the earth groaning, for the sons and daughters to be revealed. And that's what's going on. So powerful stuff. The root pictures, great. Yeah. Love it. You can see them upside down, those root balls.
Yes.
Like, wow.
Yes.
Wow. Yeah. Over and over again.
Yeah. I had a buddy of mine a few years ago going through a really difficult time, health issues. He had I'm trying to say, like a blood clot in his lung. It can be very dangerous.
Sure.
Pulmonary embolism, I think. And it caused pain. That caused fear. And he was just going through a ton of stuff. And he said, man, I thought I was stronger than this. And it was a humble recognition from him. But I think that these seasons, these opportunities, really reveal our root structure. They really reveal our insides, our guts, And it's not pretty all the time.
Right.
But it's essential for growth. We talked about it the first hour. Preparation, is about going through adversity,
that's right,
being strengthened, and it takes these disasters, these times, to just reveal the true self. And I think if we're willing to pause long enough, man, this is an opportunity for us. But Kev, I want to echo what you said, man. You and I have been standing on this, and of course, Macy, you're with us. You and I have been standing on this, that God is doing something in this city through this movement to bring back His people and establish His kingdom here as a place, as a beacon city, that people might know the power of God lived out.
Makes no sense at all.
And it's happening.
But yet it is. And everything in Scripture hardly makes sense. The walls of Jericho falling down. That's our God. That's His personality. You want to see His personality? Look what He does. Watch what He does here over the course of the next few years. He's doing it. So anyway.
Yes.
Yes.
Hey, before we go, is this we got one more segment, or is this it? Okay, we can come back to that. But I want to talk more about the idea of vulnerability and the roots and all that.
Yep.
That's a great thing, and it's funny because 2 weeks or maybe a little bit before that, maybe a month before I preached on vulnerability, and fear. And here we go. I mean, it's this whole thing that God's just like moving all of these things in place where he's like, hey, I'm trying to tell you something.
Yeah.
Pay attention,
Right.
Thus saith
It's a nudge. Get the nudge.
Gosh, let's hear the nudge. Well, guys, you are watching Wake Up Our Faith. Matt Ham, Kevin Adams, Macy Cole. Fantastic conversation. This is so good. I want to encourage you guys to share this out. Dive in, ask questions, be a part of this. But more than that, we want to invite you into our community. Every weekday morning, we wake people up with encouraging and powerful thoughts and challenge them to think on them for just a couple of minutes. WakeUpMyFaith.com. I promise there's a powerful part of your life that's ready to wake up. We want to invite you to join us during the break. Check it out, WakeUpMyFaith.com. We'll be back right after this. Hello and welcome back to Wake Up Our Faith. This is the show where passion, purpose, and dreaming big challenge common sense. We like to think of it as a conversation to shed light on the upside of upside down living. Matt Ham, Kevin Adams with you every week. First hour, Macy Cole. Sorry, my tongue is stuck. I need some water or something. I got the water.
Macy's and Cole.
Cold.
Yes.
Right.
Spelled differently.
Yeah.
Good way to
Macy Cole, good friend of ours. I should be able to say her name. We've been talking about Hurricane Florence, kind of what we've learned. Fantastic thoughts last segment on trees and roots and just, man, so good. What was the word? It was the superficial and the artificial being eradicated and God doing something in this city, and we're just sitting here going, yes, this is awesome. But one of the things that we want to tap into this last segment is vulnerability.
Mm-hmm.
The willingness to be vulnerable.
Yeah. Well, we talked about this a little bit earlier in our previous hour, and I think Macy really jumped into it in this hour. So just to tie it together, one of the things we talked about earlier was deliverance through, rather than asking God to remove it, ask Him to deliver you through, because it takes time, growth. Well, what does that do? What does that earthly preparation do for your heavenly purpose? And this is I'm just voicing it again. It removes your vulnerabilities. So, Scripture says that God His strength works in our weakness. So ultimately, we are strongest when we are most vulnerable. Well, vulnerability doesn't mean pathetic. It doesn't mean wallowing on the floor in pain and, disease. What it means is laying down and allowing God to come in and remove all those broken, dead roots, bad limbs. And He says, even the good trees are pruned. The other ones are thrown on the fire, but even the good trees are pruned. So the idea of vulnerability is very Christ-like, and it's humble, it's patient, it's peaceful, but it's amazing, because in upside down living, that's where your power comes, because we're just allowing God's power to work through us, because we're not being blocked. And so anyway, the idea is basically letting God occupy you. That's what vulnerability really is, and it's amazing. So anyway.
Well, I love how you describe that, Kevin, because when we allow God to occupy us, that means He's bringing in light where potential darkness could have existed.
Yeah.
And so being vulnerable is the willingness to let light shine on the parts of us that have grown dark.
Yeah.
And if we use the analogy of the tree, maybe if the tree that was rotten in the center had let a little more light in, where life comes from, then when the storm came in, it wouldn't have snapped in half. Mm-hmm. And I think so often what happens in this community is that we get really good at hiding our darkness. We get really good at hiding the sides of us. The
facade.
Yeah, the facade, exactly. Mm-hmm. And so it's vulnerable to be like, I'm just a human being. It's vulnerable to stand in front of a group of yogis and talk from the Spirit, and then come out of that space and be just a completely regular person, right? But it's because God gives each one of us gifts, and He sees our completed self, but we aren't always acting as though we're complete. And so when we allow ourselves to be vulnerable, two things have to happen. We have to know that we're in a judgment-free zone. And the only way to be in a judgment-free zone is to not judge within ourselves. So the more that we judge others, the more that we're going to be judged, because life is a reflection of who we are. So we've got to stop judging others for their inadequacy. And a lot of times when we judge others, we judge their deficiencies against our own greatness. And then we judge our own deficiencies against their own greatness. And we're always going to come up short there. But when we allow ourselves to be vulnerable, it's not about judgment. It's saying, yeah, I am the one after God's own heart, but I got my best friend killed, and then I committed adultery and raised a son who has many wives and lives a life that God doesn't condone. Mm-hmm. But it doesn't ever take away from how much we're loved. And so when we allow ourselves to get vulnerable, we protect ourselves from snapping in half and being uprooted when the storm comes in, because the enemy loves for us to refuse vulnerability. The enemy loves for us to get really good at hiding our darkness so that no light can get in, because light is God. Light is love. It's the way. It's the answer. It takes confusion, which is the mastermind of the enemy, and brings truth into the light. And we get to walk into that light with God, Christ, hand in hand, governed by the Spirit. It's a beautiful picture.
Yeah. Well, light is creative. That's you're talking about God used that to create everything.
Wow.
It's the power that He uses. And one of the things I wanted to clarify, because earlier we talked about removing vulnerabilities. Well, it's trading one for the other. It's the all-in vulnerability to heaven, allowing being surrendered and yielded to God and His light, His creative light. But He removes the vulnerabilities to the world and the appetites. So it gets everything in right order. But it's weird. We've got to stand on our head kind of to see what He's up to, because it is upside down. It's backwards. The first shall be last, et cetera, et cetera. So anyway.
This thing is really tapping into me. We talked about cleansing, right? Mm-hmm. And one of the things that I believe this has done is it's cleansed our affections. Okay. Mm-hmm. And in this storm, you really begin to see where your affections rest.
Wow.
Mm-hmm.
Am I affectionate for my stuff, for my career, for, all these things? When all that's gone and the water is rising, your affections change quickly.
Yeah.
Yep. And you focus on what matters most to you. Mm-hmm. And so it was a purification opportunity to say, where are my affections? And Kev, man, it echoes this text you sent out to our community. And I'm reading part of it, but this is powerful. This is what this did. Authentic faith requires nothing less than an ongoing applause for God as His love removes everything from our lives that resists Him. Would we applaud God for removing the things that we are affectionate for instead of Him in the midst of this season? That's strong.
Yeah. Well, when you go through that and you're willing to go through trials and allow God to prune you, you can see there ain't no going back, right? Yes, bring it, because wow, this is so much better than all that stupid, silly stuff. Not all of it's stupid and silly. A lot of it's great, but it's still not God. It's from Him. It's not His face. It's from His hands. A big difference. So that everything that resists Him, that vulnerable idea. I think of all of these. This is just an out there picture again of these hollow trees and these dead things. But there's all these beautiful beach houses that for most of the year they're empty, and they've taken up the whole beach. And it's heartbreaking to me. All these rich folks own all these houses. They visit once in a while. They rent them out. In the summer, most of the time they're empty. $1 million+ homes on the beach. Like, that's God's beach. I'm not saying it's a good investment, all that stuff. Just a picture of it. It's the same thing. It's like our hearts sometimes, if they're empty, they're just beautiful beach houses, and they're not really,
nothing's inside.
It can be a home for so much.
Wow.
Anyway,
we had that moment. We were away. My brother and his wife, so excited. They adopted a son, and they got him before the storm. Cool. So I'm just so proud of my brother and his wife, and just happened to welcome our new cousin and nephew. But anyway, we're away, and that was the way we felt. We have this home that has power, and it's empty. I mean, that hits you in a place where you're like, God, man, I don't ever want to live like that.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I don't want to ever have an empty home. And that's a really, really powerful thought to consider. So I hope folks are willing to pause with this, because it'll change your life if you will.
Yeah.
Well, the last vision that God kind of gave me as we were talking is, we've got this altar of God, and God's meant to sit on that altar alone. He's not supposed to compete with any other thing, and not for His benefit, but for ours. Yeah. And a lot of times what we do is that altar gets cluttered with all the things that don't matter, the things that we were literally just talking about. And the storm comes in and knocks it all off. And we can either frantically try to put all of those things back up on the altar for God to knock back down again in some other shape, way, or form, or we can let God knock it off and only see Him, keep our eyes on Him, believe in Him, trust in Him. He always has our greater good, even when it's hard to see. Seek the silver lining and continue to just honor His truth.
So
Amen.
Good. So good. Macy, thanks so much for that. Kev, do you have anything you want to add as we close up today?
No, just relax, trust your God, and be a pioneer for Him.
Yeah.
In peace.
Absolutely. Well, Kev, appreciate it. Macy, thank you. Guys, we're here to help. We're here to walk with you. Connect with us. Youprint.life, youprint.life. Connect at wakeupmyfaith.com as well. We'll see you next week. You guys be blessed.